Hi, I'm Sam Mewis.
Mewis, shooting! Sam Mewis!
You may know me as a member of the U.S. Women's National Team who won the World Cup in 2019.
And they are the world champions again!
And you also may have heard that I have to retire from soccer due to a knee injury that I've been dealing with for a long time. This has been a really sad and difficult time for me, but luckily there is a silver lining. I'm really excited to announce that I'm going to be joining the Men in Blazers Media Network full-time as editor-in-chief of the Women's Game. This vertical is going to include podcasts, live shows, a YouTube channel, dedicated social media platforms, and a newsletter. This is my first ever office job. I'm on Slack. It's a whole new world out here. What we're trying to build here at the Women's Game is the go-to place to hear about women's football.
Gotham FC, the 2023 champions!
My best friend, Lynn Williams, is going to be coming with me,
Lynn Williams with a hat trick!
talking U.S. Women's National Team, NWSL, WSL, and more. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll be speaking to players like Lindsey Horan, Lucy Bronze, Jill Scott, Mal Swanson, and maybe we can even get my sister Christy to come on the show.
Sam Mewis from Christy Mewis!
We're here to bring you the heart of women's football. 2024 is set to be a landmark year, and we're just warming up. But episode 1, which is what you're about to listen to, has come at this time of really pivotal change in my life. So I kind of wanted to be the first guest on my own show, and I'm really thankful to Roger Bennett, the founder and host of Men in Blazers, for supporting this mission and creating this space for the women's game to grow. So I've asked him to come on and chat with me. And here it is, episode 1 of the Women's Game. Thanks for being here.
I've got to be honest with you, Sam Mewis. I do always love spending time with you. But today's conversation, it's a bit of a different one, even for me, a difficult one. One that's filled, I'll speak for myself and not project, with a sadness and a significance, not just for you, but I think for everyone who loves American football. I believe you're about to say a few words that you've thought about but may not have said out loud. And I just want to acknowledge how hard this must be now that one phase of your life, Sam Mewis, the elite dominating force on the field, is over.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's really hard. It's been like a kind of a tough couple of years, obviously. And I know we're going to get into this and kind of tell the story, but I think there's like a really cool silver lining here that I'm excited to talk about as well. And I just want to thank you for letting me come on here and talk about this and giving me this opportunity that we're announcing.
Sam, it's your show. I'm the one that's so grateful to be on here. But in your heart right now, I mean, a complex mix of emotions, I imagine. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, it's a big week and a big weekend. I feel like a mix of emotions. Like you said, I think it's kind of a conflicting time. Something that I've been trying to convey to the people I'm close to in my life that I've told about this is that while I am so grateful for all that soccer has given me, and while I'm so thrilled to be joining Men in Blazers, I am still really sad that playing soccer is not going to be in my life anymore. And I feel a lot of confidence in the decision that I've made to retire. But at the same time, I don't feel happy about the decision. I think it's the right one, but it doesn't necessarily feel like joyful. So it's been a weird complexity of emotions to experience.
Professional football is such a cocoon that for those who play it, just it's a complete structure, a total identity. I mean, you once said in your own words, you said, on the field, I've been prepared for everything. Soccer's the one place where if something does go wrong, you've been prepared for that. Whereas in life, real life, you're kind of like, oh, I didn't expect this.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think it's so interesting. Like even with injury, I mean, you deal with injuries during your career and you learn that you just go and get treatment and eventually it will feel better. And I think this one in particular has really stumped me. Emotionally, intellectually, I really haven't known how to make sense of it in a lot of ways. And I think finally arriving at this conclusion that I'm never going to have all of my ducks in a row, or I'm never going to have a clear-cut answer as to why this happened, but I still need to take a step forward in the right direction. And soccer has taught me so much. It feels like it didn't really prepare me for like this transition, but I'm sure someday I'll look back and realize all the ways that it did. So it's definitely a hard position to be in, but I have a lot to be thankful for too.
Here's the horrible reality, the hard facts, and I'll run through this as quickly as I can. You can correct me about any of this, but you suffered an injury to your right knee late 2017 after a season that saw you start every single game for your then team, the North Carolina Courage. Also, so many appearances for the US women in that summer's Tournament of Nations. You had another surgery, 2021, and then last January, you made the incredibly, I imagine, difficult decision to have a second, more complicated procedure on the knee. And pretty much as long as I've worked with you, Sam, you've been in recovery, grueling recovery, marking small successes, taking your first tentative steps without a brace, or being able to stand up long enough to take a shower. And first of all, how did you find the mental strength to get through what I imagine was a very dark times at times? Was it simply the thought of being able to lace up your boots and eventually get back into the field that was keeping you through it?
You know, I think that there has been a piece of me all along that knew that playing soccer again was like a really far off goal. And so I tried to have smaller goals along the way. When I had the scope in 2021, I was all in, like, I'm coming back. I wrote that I'd be back in 6 to 8 weeks. And I was still very much operating in that world of like, this is my life and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm at all costs, I'll get there. And then as kind of time started passing, I had more and more setbacks. I became more and more isolated from any team, from the national team, from the Kansas City Current that I was on. Because when you're not playing, you just lose those touch points with your teammates and you're not in camp anymore and you're not out at the practice field. And I found myself just in the gym alone. And what got me through it? Time. Like, I just woke up every day and I just did it. I had great people in my life. Lynn Williams, my husband, Pat, my family, they were there for me. And I think it was really hard for all of them to grapple with what it was that I was going through and what it meant and what it would come to mean. But I just kind of kept going until I reached a point where it just wasn't going to happen, and I had to make this decision to get this big surgery or not. I don't really know like how I just did it day after day, because it really was a really difficult time. I was really, really sad, and I felt really isolated from the soccer world.
I remember talking to you about this incredibly hard time. And you said as long as there was a 1% chance to come back, you told yourself you could do this, that you would be back. But then suddenly you just realized, I mean, there was a hard computing where you realized you may not, you were gambling, forcing yourself back against, I mean, you worked about being able to walk really well when you're older. That's essentially, that's a crude way of saying what it came down to, right? You said that on one of our first staff meetings to everyone about that moment.
I think some things became clear to me. I think when you're immobile for a long time and when you're in pain for a long time, you start thinking about the quality of your life as an active adult person, not as a professional soccer player. And when I couldn't walk my dog for months and I couldn't get around my house and I couldn't take a shower on my own, I saw this future where I returned to soccer at any cost, and it cost me my health as a grown-up, as a person, as a human being. And I think somewhere in the past year of 2023, rehabbing from this big surgery that I had last January, I just realized that my priority was to be able to walk without pain and to put off needing another knee surgery. I likely will need a knee replacement sooner rather than later. And I don't want to rush into that by continuing to put all this impact on this knee that really is pretty delicate at this point. And I'm saying this kind of like in a lighthearted way, but this took me literally years to realize and come to a conclusion about. I just wanted to be a healthy, active adult person instead of be a professional soccer player at any cost.
Yeah, as long as I have known you, as long as I've worked with you, you always, as long as I've got that 1% chance to come back, But then there was a moment that you realised in our conversations, and this is a lesson about life, Sam. And I've thought a lot about it since we talked about it, because Lord knows we all have hard things in our lives that we don't want to confront or to admit to ourselves the true enormity of it. Even though rationally it's there, emotionally we can often put it off. And there was a moment where you just like, you know what? I have to rip the Band-Aid off. I need to retire. But that process, that moment, that realization, that's a life truth, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think it's hard for me too not to confuse like this decision as if I have a choice. Like, I think what I said to you was that I've known deep down that rationally I physically can't play soccer at an elite level. But emotionally, I was like, maybe there's a chance. And there's a difference between like me saying I'm stepping away for my health and me saying like I physically can't play. And I think that both are true. But I feel like it's also just this confusing place to be in. Like I feel very physically limited, and I do not believe that I can play professional soccer. And I am also choosing to say, I'm going to call it now, and this is what I believe, and this is what I'm going to do. Does that make sense?
It does, completely. But just the enormity of it is what we're left to sit with. The decision to retire as a professional athlete. I mentioned the cocoon that you're in earlier, but it is such a singular thing because it's something that we in civilian life do not understand. Theoretically, you should have control over this decision. Because for years or decades, you've had every moment planned for you, Sam, with schedules for what you should eat, training plans given to you, gym sessions, kickoff times, when the plane leaves, when the coach returns from the airport. Your whole life is almost a structure that was handed to you by your teams you played on. Suddenly, in this moment, Sam Mewis, all of that structure falls away into nothing. That is I imagine that is a frightening new reality.
It is. I think it's brought to light this like real lack of autonomy that I have felt over my own life. I remember for the first times really feeling like I had to make these big decisions. Like, should I go play for Man City? And kind of waiting on the decision and being like, well, who's going to decide? And eventually in making these decisions, I got these reps and had to realize like I do have autonomy over my career and this is up to me. But with this one, I wanted a doctor to make the call. I wanted a coach to make the call. I wanted my agent or my parents or somebody to weigh in and go, it's so clear what you have to do. Just do this thing. And nobody knew. None of the doctors knew. I never really got a clear answer from multiple people that was the same thing. Nobody in my personal life has been through anything like this. And it's taken me, again, so long, over 2 years to realize that I have to make this decision and I have to prioritize what I want. And that is to be a healthy, active adult person. But I think is just brought to light for me this idea that over my career, I have felt like I need to give up a lot of my control to outside forces. And I have learned a lot through this process of realizing that this is my decision to make.
So this is your decision to make. That's your decision as an individual. It's your identity. And this moment in time, your identity it's just changing so profoundly, Sam. You have been in love with, you've always been defined as a footballer. Sam Mewis, elite footballer. This is a game you've been in love with and have been a major part of. It's been the dominant part of you. You became the dominant part of it in this nation. But it's a journey from when you were 6 years old, watching the US women win the World Cup in 1999, when you had a Mia Hamm jersey and a poster of Michelle Akers on your wall. Your identity since you were young enough to still have a full set of baby teeth has been Sam Mewis, soccer player. So in this moment, how does it affect your sense of self, of how you define yourself? Do you have to brace yourself for the first time? You see yourself described as former soccer player Sam Mewis.
Yeah, I do. I think that in some ways this time gap from since I've last played, it's been about 2 years, has enabled me to like explore some other parts of myself and figure out, well, what else do I even like doing? Thank God I got into podcasting and figured out that I really like doing that. But I've tried pottery and I've taken drum lessons, and I know that I'm obsessed with my dog, and my dog will bring me life no matter what. But I've had this kind of gap to kind of give myself a little bit of time to realize that I am not just a soccer player. People have told me that for a long time, and I never believed them until recently. But I think all the things that made me really good as a teammate and made me good on the field, like, those are just characteristics that I still have. I work hard, and I'm a good friend, and I like to laugh and have fun. And those things will continue carrying me through my life. I didn't just have like a good right foot. I have like other qualities that made me good. So I've had to really learn to believe that. And I'm grateful. While the last 2 years have been horrible in so many ways, I think it was a helpful transition time for me to get to learn that about myself.
How did the drumming go, Sam Mewis?
I swore I would never tell a soul that I did that, but I love it so much, and I really want to get good and join a band.
Oh God, Slater Kinney, are you listening? One last question, because I want to relive some of the moments in your journey, and then also talk about what next as an individual, what next together that we're hoping to build. Because I know you've put so much love, so much energy, so much thought into that. But a lot of young listeners are footballers who are probably even now battling injury in their own career, and I know you've lived this. I know this is a rare experience. I know you spent a lot of time, grappling, as well as the medical side of things, the psychological side of things. What's your message to them, young people who are giving their life to football, and football, unkindly, cruelly, has led to an injury? What advice do you have for them that they can bring into their own lives?
I mean, I think there's the obvious one that every day you get to go out and train is such a gift. And there were days that I dreaded running or going to the gym or whatever it was. And I just wish I had some moments back, playing on the grass with my teammates and doing a passing drill. I'll always really miss that. So my advice from that regard would be to just every now and then check in with yourself and try to enjoy one session. That's what it's all about, is going out and being with your teammates and training. That's those were the best parts for me. But I think that I would also just say that nobody's as incentivized as you are to take care of your body. And if you feel that something is wrong, or that your load isn't being managed, or that you have this injury that you're not seeming to get any answers about, I think my advice is just that you really need to have autonomy and agency to take care of that. It's not in anybody else's best interest to have you rest when you need to rest. So not everybody's in that situation, but to just feel a sense of control over your own body. It is yours, and it's where you have to live for the rest of your life. And that's really an important thing that I don't think young players get told enough.
Let's live some of those beats for a moment. You ready? Can we relive the Sam Mewis journey? Because I spent a lot of time thinking about your arc, and I realize I think about you in so many ways. As the so-called Tower of Power, a footballer who defined themselves in the midst of a World Cup to become one of the most dominant in the world, and had a life changed as a result, which we'll talk about. But what's remarkable about you is digging into your story again, Sam. You won something on every team you played for, everywhere you went.
I know. I'm thinking back, and I'm did I I'm trying to check them off the list, but yeah, I feel while my career was short in what I would have liked, shorter than I would have liked, I did have so much success with the teams that I was on, and I feel who could have asked for more championships in a condensed amount of time. And winning is so much fun. And so I'm just really, really grateful that I have all those like positive winning memories to look back on.
So going back to the source of your journey in Hanson, Massachusetts, your mum, Melissa, she once famously said that you and your older sister, Christy, played so much soccer in your backyard that, quote, we still can't get the grass to grow. What are your earliest memories with a ball, the two of you? I imagine tearing at each other. Who was the best? What was that competition between you two like? Was that what always drove you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways it was. I mean, Christy and I watched the U.S. Women's National Team together when we were young. I have vivid memories of watching them win that 1999 World Cup. But we would just play in the backyard all day. My dad also, I think, has said they had to replace portions of the fence because we would just kick the ball against the fence so much. I think Christy and my relationship was so competitive. That was like the birthplace of us being like, we're going to go and be the best and we're going to make the national team and we're going to play pro. It was kind of in that sister relationship where I was always chasing her. I think I pushed her to be better. She kind of pulled me up with her. And our relationship is such like the genesis, I think, of our success because we had each other and we had just this competitiveness between us that we both just wanted to be really great.
Yeah, I mean, Christy is 20 months older than you are. And you've often said seeing what she was accomplishing along her journey was validating to you, set new goals for you, that when she was called into an under-14 US camp, you thought that meant you could be noticed too. If one of you made it, why not the both of you? It's hard to be hypothetical about history, but do you think you would have followed Christy if she'd been like an all-star point guard or a world-class shortstop too?
I mean, maybe. Like I admire her. I admire her so much. She like really paved the way for me in so many ways. So honestly, if she had been like obsessed with a different sport, maybe I would have just followed right in her footsteps. But I do also think that our obsession with the national team, it was such good representation for us. I mean, we saw women doing exactly what we wanted to do. The early iterations of the professional league, those things just made it a reality for us. And saying I want to be a professional women's soccer player was not this impossible task. The fact that we had each other, I think, just kind of paved this way for us where we could see that it was possible.
God, as I said, looking back on the highlights of your career, it's actually hard to do in a condensed way. It should be a Netflix mini-series because there are so bloody many. They're all highlights. As a teen, you won 3 Massachusetts state championships with your club team, Scorpions SC. You were part of the US National 17 and under team. Your travel schedule, I mean, my God, it would have given Carmen San Diego jet lag. You played tournaments in Europe, New Zealand, South America, but you still made sure, this is so you, to make as many appearances as you could for your high school team, the mighty Whitman-Hanson Regional, riding that bus, playing Teach Me How to Doogie on repeat as you won 4 league championships. I mean, it was exhausting just reading that paragraph, but what did you get from that high school team that you needed that you weren't getting elsewhere? Because you were playing football at the highest levels, but nope, you wanted to come back to old Whitman-Hanson and dominate them all.
I loved my high school soccer experience. I think it was right around the time where we started seeing articles sometimes that girls who were trying to be on the national team like weren't playing high school. I think that what was so important about it for me and for Christy was that we were playing with our friends for our school. We had night games. We would wear eye black under our eyes and we'd have glitter in the hallway. Like, it was so much fun that elsewhere when we were playing soccer, there was so much pressure. We were traveling to New Zealand to play in a World Cup and it was stressful. And we're kids. I was 15, 16 years old. And so to get to come home and play with my friends and have this like glitter party in the hallway made soccer like fun and easy still. It was still like something I just got to do and enjoy and not be so stressed about all the time. And I think that is one of the reasons why I never really got burnt out and I never really resented the game and I never really got this feeling like this is all too much as a young teenager. I just loved it because I had different teams to express myself in different ways.
God, US soccer, as it's trying to build the next generation of elite players,
Glitter.
more glitter parties, more eye black. and then there will be no stopping us. You and I actually started broadcasting together at the last World Cup. We did a ton, and I really love so much of it. You know, the seeds of everything we're trying to do now are in that month that we spent together live streaming games, previewing games. But what I loved best was the post-game live call-ins, because we would get callers post-massive World Cup games when there was so much to talk about, but people wanted to call in at, like, this was, by the way, at 6 o'clock in the morning. They were getting out of bed so they could call in and say to you, Sam Mewis, we get callers saying, like, I played against you when you were a kid. They play for, like, I imagine, like, for Gloucester or Marblehead or whatever. And they just wanted to say to you, what an honour it was to be mowed down by you, Sam Mewis. And there was never a question attached. But I realised, listening to them, that being battered by you in the 90 minutes of a game, it was often other people's career highlights and peak memory too. What were you like as a kid player, Sam Mewis, as a teen? Were you what we saw, you know, was it straight line between one and the other? How would you describe your style?
I was such an emotional player when I was young. I would get so upset when I'd make a mistake. Like, I'm like such a perfectionist that if I didn't play a perfect game and score on every opportunity I had, I would be so upset with myself. And I think that it wasn't really until I got to college that I kind of was like, oh, I have to take a step back emotionally from this and be a little bit more professional. As a kid, yeah, I think I like didn't realize how big I was. So I kind of was just mowing people down and like not really realizing that I was so powerful and fast and was scoring a lot of goals. And I wish I could kind of like watch myself play then as I am now, because I think it would have been so fun to see. I loved my experience with my club teammates. We were actually really good. We were like a crafty little team. We loved playing possession. We played up an age division for years. And I'm still in touch with a lot of those girls. I really had such an incredible youth soccer experience that I don't think I would change at all.
After high school, as you mentioned, you moved 3,000 miles west to play soccer at UCLA. And keeping with a theme, as a junior, you were part of the Bruins team that won an NCAA championship, school's first national title in women's soccer. You also got your first invitation to train with the United States women's national team. Now, take us back to that moment when you were first contacted. Who calls you? How does it feel when you put the phone down? Is it amazing? Is it frightening? Is it both? Is there imposter syndrome? What was your experience like? You know, who welcomes you? Who threatens you? How does it all go down?
I was kind of like confused. Tim Ryder, who was the coordinator for the national team at the time, I think called me or texted me and said, do you want to come to practice? I was in LA and the team was training in LA and I didn't have a car. And so I kind of had to like, I went and asked Abby Dahlkemper, like, I don't know, like, this guy Tim called me and I, like, think I need to borrow your car. Like, I have to go to the Home Depot Center and go to training. And I was, like, it was kind of confusing. So I borrowed Abby Dahlkemper's car and I drove to the Home Depot Center. I show up at training and it's the, like, maybe one of the last days of camp. So it was a 5v5, like, round robin tournament. And I was so out of my league. I think they generally just like needed a local body to come and fill in. And I was not ready to be that local body. Like, I remember Lauren Chaney dribbling in circles around me. I did not help my team at all. I probably made it worse for them. I just remember, honestly, Lauren Chaney absolutely dominating me and I was horrified. But my sister was there. And I somehow did enough. They called me into the next camp and I remember being like, somebody was not watching that practice.
God, I just love, when I heard he had to borrow a car, I thought the borrow was euphemistic and he just hot-wired Abby Dahlkemper's car. He didn't ask. He just did the old coat hanger thing that they did in movies to get the car all razzed up. But after seeing the level that these players, Lauren Chaney and others were on, was it daunting? I mean, for me, to be candid, I'm not an elite footballer. You win things, I lose things. But I would have been like, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. But did it make you reevaluate your own expectations, or did it make you feel like, you know what, I realize now what I need to do to step up to get to that level, and I will.
Yeah, it was much the second thing you said. I think that I was playing at UCLA and I was probably underperforming a little bit. I think maybe I had a good reputation and I wasn't quite living up to it. And then I went into this camp, and it really was such a catalyst for me to kind of recommit. And I remember I had always been someone who would go out and do extra, but from there on out, I was like, wow, I'm not fit enough. I'm not playing fast enough. I need to do X, Y, and Z. And it kind of led me to having an even better senior season at UCLA. I remember I scored a lot of goals and I felt really good. And I kind of continued to stay on the cusp of the national team. Being exposed to that high level of play was really such a catalyst for me to want to grow even more and to see what the areas were that I wasn't efficient enough in.
So this is where it gets to, and this is incredible. You made your senior debut, March 2014, in the Algarve Cup. And this is incredible. You and your sister, Christy, both came on as substitutes in the 67th minute. What did that moment feel like to look over, to see each other in the United States jersey, you children of Hanson, then just trot out together to represent the entire nation? Was it proud? Was it dreamlike? Was it almost too much to process?
It was definitely too much to process. I remember being really relieved that Christy was going to come on with me because at least I had her out there. But I think we were losing and there weren't really any fans there. So it kind of felt like a scrimmage. And we ended up losing the game. And I don't know if I've told you this, Raj, but I am the only U.S. women's national team player to go 0-3 in their first 3 caps. I lost my first 3 appearances with the national team. So that was kind of horrifying. But it is a really cool memory to have that experience with Christy. There was a cool picture of both our last names and we're right next to each other about to run onto the field. And it was that moment in it of itself was kind of a dream come true. And then yet it's crazy to think of all the other things we got to do together on the national team. But that was really cool.
2015, you graduate from UCLA. You drafted 4th overall by the Western New York Flash. Next season, the Flash only went and won the NWSL championship. And then they were Cleveland Browns. They moved to North Carolina, became the Carolina Courage, one of the greatest names in sports. You won 2 more championships. 2 of your teammates in that same draft who shared those title-winning seasons, Abby Dahlkemper, who was at UCLA with you and gave you the automobile of life, and Lynn Williams, your once and future podcast co-host. For you 3, titles became routine. You won twice with the Courage, but May 2019, then US national team coach Jill Ellis named you to the roster for the Women's World Cup in France. You went on, Sam, you went on to have a World Cup of wonder. I mean, World Cups can be life-changing. And when I think of yours, that's what it was. You began as Sam Mewis, a leading NWSL player, and you ended as Sam Mewis, one of the most feared and revered and coveted football juggernauts in the world. I mean, how did you experience that transformation internally?
I don't think I was super aware of it. I think on the national team, it really takes a lot to see yourself as people on the outside may see you. So within the national team, I still very much felt like this up and coming player who had a lot to prove. And I was in a lot of ways, but I felt like I really contributed at the World Cup, and I felt like there were some other young players who did the same thing. And so the world that we created inside that bubble for that team, I think, is what enabled us to have such success, but it didn't really allow much from the outside to permeate into it. I have the best memories from that World Cup. I don't think I realized that I made a really great name for myself then. I was just so happy and relieved that we won, and that it went so well, and I felt such a connection to all of my teammates there. And then kind of flew by from there. It was, yeah. It
did. It really did. 'Cause, I mean, this is amazing to watch you start in a World Cup final. And I remember watching, one of my memories of that final is watching you during the national anthem. It was like you were smiling through the whole thing, like you knew something that the 58,000 people in attendance at the Parc Olympique Lyonnais didn't yet. And whatever it was that made you smile, it came to pass. 1-0 up, the United States, you slid a beautiful ball to unlock Rose Lavelle, who made it 2. We've talked a lot about the celebrations after the final whistle. You were absolutely overcome with emotion. You held up a jersey with Champions 19 on the back. You showed the camera the 4th star, now stitched above the US crest. You yelled, "Let's go!" during a changing room sing-along to We Are the Champions. Sam, what was a definitive memory you have from that tournament? One that maybe not everybody knows about in that journey to win a World Cup for the United States.
Well, I think I always see that clip of myself crying, holding the jersey. And obviously I'm just like such a sap that like I was bawling and everybody's like, okay, like lunatic, like you need to just stop bawling your eyes out. But what was so emotional about it is like the jersey, I had worn a U.S. Women's National Team jersey as a kid. I wore Mia Hamm's jersey. It had 2 stars on it. And then the team put a 3rd star on it in 2015. I wasn't on that roster. But I had been wearing that jersey with the 3 stars. I had worn the one with 2. And I think just realizing that the jersey would always have 4 stars. Hopefully soon it will have 5 and 6. But I was a part of something that changed that jersey. And the jersey was this like icon of importance in my childhood and my career. And being a part of something that was now going to be on it forever is really like what made me cry. And it was just this real like full circle moment of I've always been obsessed with the U.S. Women's National Team, and now I'm on it, and I actually did something like memorable and meaningful. It feels like such a difficult place to leave a mark because so many great players have done such great things in that jersey, and to be a part of that 4th star made me bawl my eyes out.
That is utterly beautiful, and the power in a way of tiny strands of cotton, the power of a star on a uniform, the power in that very second of having a human awareness that you are forever within part of the context of history. That's an incredible thought in that deeply, deeply profound moment. And you were part of a deep part, a dominant part of that victory. You're also part of another crucial win as a group of US women who, at the same time as winning on the field, challenged their own football federation, US Soccer, to request equal pay for the women's and men's national teams. A fight that was ultimately successful, since given other women's teams the courage to take on their own federations for equal pay. Massive federations. In England's case, for girls players to have the same opportunities at school as their male counterparts. Canada, beyond. So many teams following your lead. I mean, to me, it's proof that your career, as we know, was and is one of winning on the field, also off it. And when you look back at your legacy as a player, where does this moment, the equal pay accomplishment, paving the way for those yet to come, please God, for generations, where do you see that fitting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was an incredible accomplishment. The team and the women who really led that charge, I feel so grateful to have been any part of it at all. I learned so much about what it means to be a leader, about what it means to ask for what you deserve, demand what you deserve. Learning and seeing firsthand Megan Rapinoe and Becky Sauerbrunn and Kristen Press and the executive director of the PA, Beckaroo, doing those things, talking to the media, talking to U.S. Soccer in meeting rooms, talking to the team, explaining what we needed, what we wanted. The fact that I was even in those rooms was incredible. I think we've always said that we hope it can affect more than just our team and our country. And I believe and hope that it has rippled out and hopefully inspired other nations and other women across the world to demand more and to want more for themselves. And it was just a huge honor, honestly. And it's something beyond the field that I think our whole team is really, really proud of. After
that World Cup, you were playing some of the best, most transcendent football of your career. August 2020, with the NWSL season suspended because of the pandemic, you went and signed with Manchester City in England, where you proceeded to score an astonishing 16 goals in 32 games, including the game winner over Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final, and then again in a 3-1 win in the final against Everton. And I remember watching that year, and you always looked astonished every time you scored, even though you bloody did it, honestly, more consistently than most people floss their teeth. I interviewed you a couple of weeks into that experience for NBC, and you said something extraordinary to me, and it really stuck with me. And especially after World Cup 2023, where what you said felt prescient. I mean, you were a World Cup champion. Arguably, you were the most potent player in that tournament. But you told me that you decided to go to England, to Manchester, because you wanted to improve your game. You'd seen weaknesses in your game. You wanted to improve them. Can you describe what you, Sam, then one of the strongest footballers in the world, what were you seeking to add by going to England?
I think like when you play for the U.S. women's national team, you're in training there every day, and then going to the World Cup and being exposed to the global game. I immediately am thinking back to this young version of myself that's a perfectionist. That's like, if I'm not perfect every play, if I'm not impacting the game with my passing and my fitness and my ability to score goals every single play, every single game, then I'm not good enough. And it was always that drive that led me to want to grow and be better. So I think certainly my exposure to the global game at the World Cup and just the repetitiveness of being on the U.S. women's national team and training with the best players in the world, constantly I was exposed to these new ideas that I wanted to learn. I wanted to experience football in a different culture. I think playing with at the tactical and technical level that was in England and was at Man City, it was really exciting to me to change cultures, to change coaches, to change teammates, to just kind of ask for more from myself and to try to contribute in a totally new environment. And Man City like totally did that for me. I honestly had such an incredible experience there. And it gave me a lot of confidence. I did score a lot of goals and I was astonished. Every time I was getting great service. The team was amazing. And I kind of was just this, I'm here, I'm ready to shoot, I'm ready to head it. Just give it to me, give it near me. And I think I grew also into myself and into having confidence and realizing that I was a good player and that I could impact the game as much as I wanted to. So it was good for me in so many ways.
You weren't there alone. You were there with the mighty Rose Lavelle. And I know the two of you, it must have been such a strange season all around, even before you moved to a new league with new teammates in a new country. I mean, there's the pandemic still going on, all of that stuff. So much bloody transition. We laughed when I interviewed you both. You talked about how the washing machines in England are so tiny, and we talked at length about that, how that completely and utterly stumped you both. But I know I think you mentioned to me once like a story that captures up just the chaos, the culture shock that you had. There was like a moment you and Rose went to IKEA and you drove the whole way on the wrong side of the road or something.
Okay, Rose and I rented a car. We shared it. But like Rose would never drive. Like if you know Rose at all, she was just like, no. Like I'm scared. Like Sam has to drive. Like I'm the big sister in this relationship. So I'm driving us to IKEA. We needed to get like pots and pans. Like we moved to England. We like needed stuff. We didn't have anything in our apartments. We're on the wrong side of the road. We're on the other side of the road, the side they drive on in England. But there's like a big rotary and like cars were literally coming from all directions. And I'll never forget. I was like, Rose, like, what do I do? And she was just dying laughing. And she's like, I don't know. We were fine. We figured it out. We only crashed into a pole in the parking garage one time. It's pretty incredible. I know.
It's a miracle. And it was a Happy Doll Kemper's car, so it didn't really matter. Another lovely moment, 2021. You and your sister, Christy Mewis, you finally had the incredible opportunity to be part of the same United States squad together. Not just one game, but just a whole tournament journey for the delayed Tokyo Olympics. And the result was not what the team wanted, bringing back home a bronze medal. But personally, Sam, I've thought often about this. How did you experience it in that moment when you were walking out at the Olympics with your sister as your teammate?
It was so cool. I think what my strongest memory of that time was there was a send-off game in Hartford, Connecticut. And all our family came because that's not too far from Boston. One of the games there was absolutely pouring rain, but there's a really cute picture of Christy and I both looking up and waving. We could see our parents in the stands. And I think in the moments that we realized we both made the team, I felt confident that I was going to make it. And I just was so eager to hear that Christy was going to make it too. It was just such a cool thing to say we're Olympians together. And when Christy told me that she made it too, Vlatko had like called everybody in the morning. We FaceTimed my parents and there's such an awesome screenshot of all four of us on FaceTime. As we said, we both made it. We're both going to the Olympics. And it was moments like that where we were sharing it with all the people who had helped us get there that really wound up being the most special. It was a difficult, I think, tournament. We really didn't perform, I don't think, as we wanted to or expected to. It was the pandemic, so there were no fans there. But having Christy as my roommate at some of the hotels and just there as really my support, and hopefully I was the same to her, was like super special.
How do your parents understand it? Like moments like that. One minute you were just wrecking the grass in Hanson, the next you're just both different but superlative. How do they explain you both to themselves?
I don't know. I mean, I think they know more so than anybody what we all put into it as a family. Driving up and down the East Coast to go to club tournaments. They saw us out in the backyard. They saw us waking up early and getting home late and going to school and practicing all the time, traveling for the national team. I think my parents really would just say, like, you work hard and set your mind to something, and these girls are proof that you can do it. And I just know that Christy and I are so grateful that they were just as committed as we were to giving us every opportunity to be what we wanted. And without them, we would never have seen all the opportunities that we have.
As you look back at your career, from wearing the number 26 for the Whitman Hanson Panthers to feeling the deeply satisfying weight of a World Cup winners medal around your neck, is there one particular moment, if you could go back and relive one particular moment, if you could do it over again and experience it, what would it be?
I mean, soccer-wise, without a doubt, winning the World Cup was so special. The team, again, like the team was so close. My parents were there. My husband was there. I think that post-match whistle after the World Cup and the relief that I hadn't ruined it and that we won and that it was over was just this, like, it was the freest I've probably ever felt. The stress, the pressure of being there, of wanting to make that roster, of not getting injured, of winning, of not making mistakes, that all disappeared for a second. And then a couple of days later, it all came back because the Olympics are coming up and you go back to your club team. And it was a very, like, freeing feeling for just a few days after that whistle. And so I think soccer-wise, without a question, I think of that moment and how incredible of a feeling that was. And I would love to relive that.
God, that's an amazing, the fear that I didn't ruin it. Like having that as one of the things that drove you all this time. I mean, you always think of athletes. Arsene Wenger, I've said this a couple of times, once said to me that people who love to win become strikers. People who hate losing and fear losing become defenders. But that was one of the prime drivers when you look back at it, your arc. It really was that fear of losing, that fear of making mistakes.
It was, yeah. I think as I've reflected on, again, like my identity and what makes me over the past couple of years as I've been pulled away from the game a little bit, I always come back to this like perfectionist tendency of mine. I want everything to be a certain way. I had such high expectations for myself my whole career, and that really is what drove me to continue working, to continue perfecting, and over again. I haven't nailed this angle shot with my left foot from this corner of the box, and I'm going to work on this incessantly. And that I don't think that's something you can teach. Like, I think you can teach a lot of characteristics, and you can teach somebody how to do techniques or tactics or whatever, but the obsession with wanting to be as perfect as you can is really what drove me to keep trying to be great.
You know, our US women's stars, we've gotten used to them playing and dominating. 200 caps plus is not a rare thing on the US women's national team side. You then go out in a blaze of glory. Do you have a sense of anger or grief or sorrow that you did not get to end your career in that way, a way that you chose?
Yeah, I do. I think I have felt all of those emotions. I've searched for somebody to blame. I've cried and cried. I've felt probably every negative emotion that you could think of about this. I wanted to get 100 caps. There were so many things I wanted. and still want, and it is really hard to let go of those things. And of course, now I can turn this around and say, but I'm so grateful and I got all these great things and I'm so fortunate, and I am. But I don't think that the negative feelings just go away either. I think that it's something I still have to kind of work through and deal with. It feels unfair in a way. And I should focus on all the good, and I know that. And I know that that's what a lot of people will tell me. But it's hard. I wanted more, and I think I had a lot more to offer. And so it is, it is devastating. I'm not happy about it at all.
When you close your eyes and you think back to the beginning, does it feel long and detailed, or does it feel like it was quick, like a click of the fingers?
It doesn't necessarily, it just feels like it was my whole life. It feels in the same way if you were to say, like, you're 31, has it flown by? Like, that's what my soccer career has been. It's been 30. It's been my whole life. It's all I can remember. All of my relationships are wrapped up in it. It's like I don't know anything else. And I know that I will, and that I will be fine. And I'm so grateful, but it just feels like it's been so all encompassing, and that I don't know life any other way.
If that is the reality, an enormous reality, what do you think you'll miss the most, Sam? That feeling of victory, the companionship of being part of a team, the competitive adrenaline and release, or just a click clack of boots going down the tunnel before the game.
I said it a little at the beginning. Like, I'll miss training on the grass with my teammates in the sun. Like, I think there are just these like really like beautiful moments you have as a team where of course winning is like amazing, but it's like the little things that I'm going to miss. I think that a lot of my best friends are still playing, and like I always say, this is so stupid, but like me and Rose used to like stay up late eating goldfish at camp, and like I just feel like that's something, it's like a friendship, it's a stupid thing that I shared with somebody that is like over now. And that's been really hard for me to accept. Like, friendships aren't the same when they're not your teammate and you're not on the road and you're not staying up late. It's just a new like life now. And so I'll miss the soccer a lot. I like love the game, and I always really have, but I miss being around my friends and like sharing those stupid moments where we would just laugh about something dumb.
And worse, you have to do things with me now, Sam. That's the really terrible news that we're going to talk about in one moment.
Well, apparently, Raj, you can still make me laugh about something dumb, so I think we're going to be fine.
I'm making a little note. I'm going to send you so many bloody goldfish. But you're right. There's goldfish. What you're saying is there's goldfish and there's goldfish. And it's not the bloody goldfish. And it is irreplaceable. And it is, a new reality. And I do want to talk about that new reality. But I've got one more question. What would you do with all that competitiveness that lives inside you? That perfectionism.
I don't know. I'm going to try to channel it into this new job. I am trying other hobbies. I got really into swimming, and I already am like, okay, I want to learn how to do this next phase of swimming. I want to swim more. I want to swim longer. And I think like I will certainly figure it out. I think it's like a part of me, and it's something that has made me good at things in the past. So hopefully I can just channel it into somewhere new.
Katie Ledecky.
Yeah.
We're coming for you.
Watch out.
She may be able to swim faster, but can she drum underwater for longer than you? I think this is what we're going to be finding out. But let's talk about what you are going to do, because it is, I know it's a crazy transition, this new reality. Sam Mewis, broadcaster, one you started with Lynn Williams in podcasting. By the way, the great news is I think you're going to be a bloody incredible broadcaster working with you over the World Cup 2023. We work so hard. We're up at 2 a.m. most mornings. We'd live stream for 3 hours. You rocked it, by the way. We had guests. We had like Eva Longoria on. We had Michaela Schifrin on. You smashed that too. Then we go straight into a post-game call-in show. And you had this natural ability to drop deep tactical knowledge 1 minute, a story from your own career the next. Or just make me laugh by talking about Hugh Bloody Jackman or Boston Shore Pizza, your family's joint, the great Poopsies. What was it that you realized? And I know you love it too, broadcasting and your experiments with it. What was it you loved about broadcasting immediately from your end?
I think it was, like being on a podcast was never something I thought about until we started doing it. Lynn and I started doing it together, and I've been trying to piece it all together lately. I think I just love connecting with people and having good conversations. But I was also an English major in college. And so now as I'm like reflecting, was there always this kind of piece of journalism or passion for spoken language? Maybe that's always existed. I've always loved reading, but I think when I'm podcasting, when I'm connecting with somebody and having this really great conversation, especially when it's about soccer, it feels like it's kind of this challenge to perform well and to ask the right next question and to get something out of the interview that makes other people feel connected to that person. So I think it was the challenge, and I have always loved working with Lynn and working with you. And when you work with people that make you feel really positive and good, I think it's easy to love it. So I've just really grown to love it.
We'll talk more about that in one moment, but I did mention Poopsies, that fine South Shore pizza establishment, because, well, number one, you talk so much about it that right after we finished the World Cup, I actually drove up to Massachusetts and met you there at Poopsies. And first of all, I just want to say, how has that place not become a global chain? I don't know, because it is a gastronomic must-visit.
Poopsie's Pizza in Is it in Marshfield?
I just
oh my
used
gosh.
Google Maps.
Well, if you're from the South Shore, you know it's so good. My family always grew up going there, and maybe it's a well-kept secret, but not on the South Shore. I think people know about it down there.
Well-kept secret, and then I actually want to build a studio in Poopsies and just broadcast live from there. But secondly, Poopsies is where you sat me down and articulated quite clearly the vision of what you wanted to build together. I mean, you described a network that was essentially a mirror of what we've built MIB on the men's side, but covering women's football wherever it was going down. NWSL and the US women's national team, of course, but also serious coverage of the English Women's Super League, of Barcelona, the Spanish powerhouses, Lyon, PSG, the Champions League, Africa, South America, Australia. I mean, pretty what you said was everywhere stories are going down, you wanted to have a correspondent to match up to them. Can you describe how you imagine this thing looking in the months and years to come?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I think, like you said, it is so much modeled after what you've done. I think you've brought football to America in a way that makes Americans really excited about the Premier League and about the U.S. men's national team. And I've loved seeing your passion for the game and for what you talk about through your shows. And so there's such growth going on in the women's game, and I really want to replicate what you've done and bring the game to an American audience with passion and knowledge and access to players that they may or may not know and want to know more about. And so the idea that you were just as excited about it as I am, and you want to grow with the women's game, and you want to bring light and give attention to all these incredible players and stories and things that are happening all over the world. I'm so excited that we're going to do this together. And I think this is like such an incredible place and group of people to be doing it with.
I was so excited leaving lunch that day, and not just because, I've got to say, of the personal pizzas extraordinaire, but the notion of the women's game growing so fast, so furious in our time, that we can build an entire network to cover it with passion and detail together, and building a cast of characters that can add to that, starting with the great Lynn Williams.
I know. Lynn and I Lynn's my best friend. And we've done this together in the past, and I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to do that. And when we decided to come over here, I think we're very much a package deal. So I'm really excited that she's going to be working with us on this too. I think she brings so much to it. On the U.S. Women's National Team, playing for Gotham in the NWSL. So she brings this active player perspective that I think we're going to be so lucky to be able to hear from regularly.
You are now Sam Mewis, editor-in-chief. And after our first all-staff meeting, you said something that I actually loved. You said, I've played in a World Cup final, but this, talking to staff, is making me nervous. And what is amazing about you is for all your experiences all over the world, wins, trophies, incredible achievements, Sam Mewis, you've never had an office job.
No, I haven't. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts as a teenager, but they didn't have Slack and it was not on the computer. So this is all new to me and everybody has been really gracious about it. But it's crazy. It's a crazy transition and I'm so honored and grateful that I have this opportunity to do it. But it is so wild. I don't have any office endurance. So if I have a couple of calls in the morning, it'll be 2 in the afternoon and I look at my husband and I'm I'm so brain dead. I can't even have a conversation. I'm exhausted.
I know, this is amazing because office endurance, just that very concept
Office
is amazing
endurance.
To us
It's real.
civilians. Because when you told me that you'd never had an office job before, it did actually remind me of my first ever office job. I just moved to Chicago and I got an incredible job working for a homeless organization. And I remembered speaking to you, I remembered my first day looking down at my desk. They give me a tiny little desk and just staring at, in particular, the light glinting off my first ever office stapler, looking back at me. And I was like, I was like, oh my God. Roger, you've got an office stapler now. You are all growing up now.
Well, I'm so silly. Raj mailed me my own first office stapler, everybody. I do not have it handy to show, but hopefully you're just listening to this on audio and you can hear me say that I'm so grateful.
I mailed Sam Mewis
I'm
an
so
office
grateful
stapler.
for my first office stapler. It's blue. Thank you.
Yep. Now you have an office stapler to go alongside your World Cup winners medal. But I do want to say one thing about you as a broadcaster. This whole new world for you. When we did the World Cup last summer, we started about 2:00 in the morning. I felt terrible for you because you had to look at me at 2:00 in the morning. We broadcast for 5 or 6 straight hours every day. It was so bloody hard. But you are quite a human wonder. That I always finished our taping day at 8 in the morning. And I was aware that I always felt better than I had when it began. And not just because of the time, and it was suddenly morning, really morning, but because of the conversation listening to you, Sam, it made me more joyful about my own life and the world, happier, more optimistic, honestly, by listening to you and working with you. And that's it's both what I want the MIB Media Network to be all about. And it's also why I actually know you are going to be an incredible broadcaster, Sam Mewis.
Well, thank you, Raj. Again, I think doing that last summer at a tournament I wished I could have been playing in was really hard for me emotionally, to talk about the team, to talk about my friends, especially in this way where I hoped it would have been easier to talk about it. And unfortunately, I don't think the team performed as they would have wanted. So it became really hard and a huge challenge for me to navigate how to do that. And the positivity that you and the Men in Blazers Network is bringing to this world, to the broadcasting world, to the soccer world, has had such a great effect on me. And that's why I wanted to come and work here, is because I want to put positivity out into the world. I want to share good stories. I want to make people look really good. And it's this spreading of joy and positivity that is one of the reasons why this network has had such success and is so attractive to so many listeners. So you helped turn something that was really difficult for me into something that was a huge opportunity, a huge positive, and led to this, which is even going to be even greater. So I'm really grateful and excited too.
I gotta say, it's hard for me to hear you say nice things about myself. In the same way, also you don't like to hear nice things about yourself. But I did feel for you during that World Cup experience. There was one broadcast we did, whereas you, me, Janine Becky, also out with a terrible ACL injury. Poor Becky Sauerbrunn out similarly with a long-term injury. And I was looking at you all chatting, laughing, making each other laugh. And just I was so bloody relieved because I did think, oh my God, not only are they not playing, but they've got to speak to me. I mean, I can't think of anything bloody worse. But there was something so, there was something healing, I think, that was what Becky said afterwards, and nourishing about that experience. But it was really the mindset that you brought to it. And so we are about to take this first step into the unknown. We do have to know what's going through your head. What are you most excited about? What's keeping you up at night? And what you're thinking as we come to the end of podcast number 1 of Sam Mewis on the Men in Blazers Media Network.
I mean, like you said, this is like a huge transition time for me. And so I am excited about the guests that we have coming on the show. I'm excited to start this journey. I think 2024, there's already going to be so many new things happening. The women's game is continuing to just grow and explode, and there's opportunity for so much interesting coverage. So some of the guests that we have coming on, I'm really excited to talk to them. The plan is to have Lindsey Horan be our first guest, U.S. Women's National Team captain, midfielder. She also plays for Lyon in France. And we're really excited to talk to her. I have been working hard on all of the questions that we want answers to. That episode is going to drop next Thursday, January 25th. We also have scheduled Lucy Bronze, Mal Swanson. We want to talk to Jill Scott and Crystal Dunn. I'm going to drag Christy, my sister, on here at some point. So we are really, really excited to talk to all those people.
And try not to get office fatigue. What was the word?
I need to grow my office endurance. I need to get office fitness endurance higher.
Office endurance up. You are that is a remarkable cast of characters. You are a remarkable human being. I know you don't like to hear lovely things about yourself, but I just want to tell you, I am so bloody excited about all we're going to build together, Samuel.
Thank you, Raj. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited. Thank you for coming on and hosting this first episode of the Women's Game.
I was going to say, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Anytime. You're welcome on anytime. Oh, you guys, I bet you didn't expect me to be crying about goldfish on this podcast. But what an awesome conversation with Raj. I'm really grateful to him and to all of you for listening. I'm so excited to bring you more great women's football content with this new vertical. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Women's Game MIB. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for the Women's Game newsletter, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be putting out a new episode every Thursday, starting next week, January 25th, with our first guest, U.S. Women's National Team captain, Lindsey Horan. I'll see you there.